In a minute. Good evening, everyone. It's live and uncut again. Friday, 8 o'clock. Yeah, I'm there as always. 8 o'clock Friday, live and uncut here again for you. I am absolutely delighted to introduce my guest tonight, Kevin Mullins, who I sent an email to him just prior to Photokina and said, would you be prepared to come on my show? And he said yes. Absolutely delighted. So, Kevin, thank you so much for joining my show. Welcome to Live and Uncut.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
It's great. It's absolutely great. And we're gonna kick off straight away with Photokina because it's still fresh in our minds, and then we'll get on to talking about Kevin's fantastic wedding photography style, which is unique. You know, you've got to look at his work, and he's going to talk us through. He's prepared a presentation for us on PowerPoint, so it's going to be great to look at that. But first of all, Kevin, let's start off with Photokina. You went over there, you did a presentation on the Fuji stand. How did you actually find the show itself? We'll talk about Fuji in a second, but how did you find the show itself?
It's the first time I've ever been there, so it's, in one word, huge, absolutely huge. And in fairness, I didn't actually get around to too many of the different halls. I saw some of the larger manufacturers, and I went down to what they call the Chinese market, and I went down to see some vendor friends of mine. But yeah, it's absolutely huge. It's buzzing. There's a good vibe there. There's lots of consumers as well as trade. You can tell there's lots of big meetings going on there. There's lots of big deals going on. There's lots of kind of things going on in the corridors. It's like an empire of power there. But yeah, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. Cool.
Yeah, this is what I've heard a lot from reading other comments and people making comments on video, that by the sound of things, in European terms, the Photokina is the one show to be at in terms of photography. And the Germans have got it. I'm involved in the industry, as my viewers will know. The Germans have just got it set so perfectly with the way their halls operate and everything else, where everything else logistically just works, doesn't it?
Yeah, everything works apart from the food, which is
yeah.
just sausages.
And a little bit of mash, and the other bit, I forget what the other bit's called, the vegetable. It'll come to me in a minute. I'll think of it.
I didn't see
sauerkraut. That's what it is. Sauerkraut. Yeah, the sauerkraut. Yeah. So let's go back. Let's start off with the Kevin Mullins biography, for one of us. Start your career. Did it start off with wedding photography, or was there another aspect of photography which you enjoyed more?
No, I was never into photography really until around about 2007.
Wow.
I worked in online marketing, IT, websites, that kind of stuff, for far longer than I wish to remember. And basically, we moved to the countryside, or this little village we live in now, and it was time to do something very different. And so that was it. I kind of plucked a career out of the air, really, and thought, well, I'll give that a go, because you know, my attitude really at the time, and still is, I suppose, is, you know, it's for a better really. Yeah. Rather than, you know, I'm not expecting to have Porsches on my drive or anything like that. So as long as my way of life is better, then I'm happy. You know, and now we've got young kids and family and all that. It's just perfect. You know, it's a good little business. So yeah, wedding photography. I did some training, read some books, built a website, and then 9th of August 2008 was my first wedding. Yeah.
You went for it. You just went for it just like that. You weren't roped in by anyone to be a second photographer on a particular day to get your teeth cut or anything of that nature?
No, not really. I suppose what I did around that time was I purchased a Canon, I don't know what they call it, 300D or something. Yeah. It's like the very low-end entry-level DSLR. And you know, at that stage of my life, lots of my friends were getting married, and so I kind of went along and did as a guest, and just did candid photography. They all had a professional photographer there doing the standard stuff. So I just did, you know, kind of snapshots of my friends and everything. And they loved them. They were all black and white, and you know, they loved them. And so I kind of thought, well, you know, maybe there's something in this. and investigated the market a bit, and kind of just went for it really.
That is truly amazing that you just literally dipped your toe in the water, boom, straight in. But the one thing which you mentioned there, which is interesting, you were doing the candid photography, whilst a professional was doing the professional shots. And this is obviously the ground roots of the career that you've built for yourself now, this candid photography, which, as you describe, the photojournalistic style of wedding photography.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, at the time, there was probably only one or two people, well, certainly that I knew of, that were doing it. And the likes of Jeff Askoff, who, his work kind of blew me away, and I really loved his style, loved his work, and loved, more than anything, loved his kind of philosophy, I suppose, about the wedding and the moments, and it's kind of stage pictures, just never done anything for me, group shots, pose pictures, all that kind of stuff. Weddings, they're part and parcel of most weddings to a certain extent, but it's the candid stuff and the emotive stuff really that floats my boat. And so my very first wedding, we had 36 group shots. And so I came home and I said to my wife, well, I'm never doing that ever again. That was a mistake. And so, just kind of decided from there not to do them, really, or not to do them to any great extent. And took it away, took it out to the marketing, took them off the website, kind of branded myself as a documentary photographer, and here we are.
And it went on from there. Do you find that when you get a contact from your customer, they know the type of work that you're going to produce, or do they call you because you are a wedding photographer? Is it just, I get the impression that there's a difficult, how can I put it? There's a situation where I think that obviously the couple obviously want the bog standard, here's me with my new husband or new wife and my mother and father-in-laws, and probably the group shot. Do they come in and still demand that, or they say, no, we're in your hands, on you go?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's taken me a long time, probably the best part of 5 years, to get the branding right, if you like. So the people that come to me now are, they can't look at my website and look at my PDFs and look at my printed brochures and the emails I send them, and then think, oh, you know what, he's going to do us 35 group shots and as a wild dogs shot of the guys and stuff. So by and large, the people that come to me don't want that these days. Occasionally they'll want, maybe one or two of the bridal party, and occasionally mums or aunties or uncles will kind of get involved, I should say. But it's important to me to kind of be true to the way that I work, because otherwise I wouldn't enjoy it. And if I didn't enjoy it, then there's no point doing it. The whole kind of group stuff is just not really something in the remit.
It's not your style. I think one thing that came over when I watched you give that presentation to the Fuji staff in Tokyo that time, where you were describing how you work, and it's very candid. And this is where we're getting into the reasons why you switched to Fuji. Because the Fuji X100S, I believe, that you were working at the time, is purely silent. You could get the shots which you wanted, rather than the click, 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 click of a larger DSLR camera.
Yeah, definitely that was part of it, the silence. But just generally the size of it, really, and the fact that I could get much closer. I was saying last week in Germany that I had my DSLRs and they were fine. I never knocked DSLRs. I never knocked the Canon systems I had. They were brilliant cameras, absolutely fantastic cameras. But there was always something a little bit missing, I thought, in the pictures that I was getting with them. And then when I saw that original X100, I don't know, whatever it was, 4 years ago at the first photo keynote, just an advert I saw, I thought, well, maybe this is it. Maybe something like this at least is what it's going to be. So. And it clicked over a period of time, but it's more about being able to get into the wedding and get close, and be I always say to my clients that I'm just I'm a paid guest, really. It's just I'm there to give you pictures from a guest's point of view, not from a photographer's point of view, and that seems to work. And so the silence of the cameras is great, and but more importantly, the size of them. And the fact that these days my cameras are smaller than most guests. Most guests rock up with a Nikon D something or other, or a Canon 5D3.
Using their Sunny or whatever it was. Do you get any comments
Yeah,
like that from guests?
not really. The only kind of comments I get from guests are, they're intrigued sometimes by the camera, and often people who know a little bit about photography might kind of pick up on it and say, or they might say, oh, is that a Leica, or is that a film camera, or something like that. But the comments I get mostly from guests is, which side of the family are you with? Are you with the bride or the groom? Because they just assume I'm there as a guest, and I'm like, you know what, I'm a paid hand.
Yeah, exactly right. But that's what you want. As you said to your clients, I'm a paid guest here. That's how you want to be seen. So the way that you're operating basically with these smaller cameras allows you probably to get the better shots than it would be if they were with a bigger camera. And obviously people say, oh, he's got a camera, I'll pose. And you get the same shot, which is not what you're looking for.
It's exactly that, absolutely that. And I've got a lot of very good friends in the industry who create beautiful, what I would class as traditional wedding photography, and they're stunning. It just doesn't float my boat, and I'm not technically proficient enough to do that kind of stuff with lights and reflectors and all, posing. So yeah, as soon as they clock that you're trying to take a picture of them, there's either an element of reticence, so they'll turn away, or there's an element of vanity, and they'll kind of stare and grin, etc. So just operate in a candid way, and
it works.
Great. It works for me.
It works for you, and it works. Obviously, we'll have a look at the images later when you give the presentation. Fantastic imagery, fantastic website, by the way. So let me just get back, because as you know, I've questioned gear and why the change. You were caught by this fascination of this advert of Fuji. You obviously tried it out. Did you have a love-hate relationship with the X100 like a lot of other professionals have had?
Excuse me. Yeah, the very first X100. I probably got one of the first X100s that came into the UK, because I pre-ordered it from Warehouse Express the moment it was available. And I now know that the UK was one of the first territories to receive stock.
Right.
So, and fortuitously, I guess, it arrived on my desk on a Thursday morning, and I actually had a wedding that afternoon, a local wedding. So I took it with me. I charged it up and took it with me, and I took a couple of shots. And you know what? It was okay, but focusing. As soon as it got dark, it was terrible at focusing, and it was a very, very different thing to get used to in terms of the ergonomics and using it and handling it. But the one thing I knew straight away was that if they continued with this, or they moved this thing into the potential it had, it would be brilliant. And I didn't know whether Fuji would do that, or at that time I don't think Sony or Olympus were doing the mirrorless stuff, or certainly not that I was aware of anyway. And I persevered with it. I got used to it a lot more. I figured out how to make it work for me. But the X100 was never a camera that was a primary wedding photography camera. It just wouldn't be something I would use as a primary camera. Whereas the X100S, I've shot several weddings just with that.
Yeah.
And not even the XP1. So it moved on. But that first X100 definitely was a case of, there's potential rather than excellence right at the beginning.
And I think really what's come about, obviously, is the way that everyone now is familiar with the way that Fuji are, dare I use the term, determined to keep in touch with the user, with the regular updates in firmware, with the regular updates, the plan that they give you of the lenses which are going to come out, which I think is so important especially for the professional photographers. So you've got, let me surmise. You've got your X100. Did the X Pro 1 follow quickly after that, or what?
Yeah, it came fairly quickly, and at that point I was writing for Professional Photographer magazine, and they said, did you want to try this thing out? And I was like, well, you know what's attracted me to the X100 was the fact that it was a non-changeable lens. It was very small. It was silent. And then the X Pro 1 came out, and it was a bit larger. It was, it reintroduced the elements of having to change lenses. It was a little bit louder and stuff. And so I said, yeah, okay, you know what, I'll test it and I'll do a review. And I did that. I had it for a week, and then I went and spent $2.5 on the X Pro 1 and a couple of lenses because I just loved it. It was just great, absolutely great.
Yeah.
And you know, now the X Pro 1's worth about £300. So,
yes.
A lot of money I spent.
Isn't that the way it always goes? Exactly. So we're now really at the stage you've fallen in love with the X Pro 1, and you've got a situation where you've got the X100. We know the 100S follows suit. When does the time come when, unfortunately for a major manufacturing firm, they lose you as a how did you make that decision? When did you make that decision?
I didn't really make a decision to, you know, the whole thing about this Fuji stuff is that the images had to be right. The image quality had to be right. There's no point in having a camera that, I'm not interested in the way it looks, the way the retro feel of it, and the silverness and everything. I just prefer little black cameras, and you know, I'm not fussed on the way they look. But the image quality had to be on par with my 5D, what was then my 5D Mark IIIs. And you know, it was getting there with the X Pro 1. In fact, it was you know, it was better in some respects. And I kind of just started introducing it, the X Pro 1. As I got used to it more, I started off with the 18mm and the 35mm lens, and I got the 60mm lens, which is a slow lens to focus with. I was using back button focusing at that point, so I was locking the focus, and I was rattling off 5 or 6 shots quite easily. And that lens is beautiful. It's so sharp. It's still one of my most favorite lens. And it was kind of then I started, you know, I found myself, not consciously, but doing more and more work with it. And then I vividly remember one wedding at somewhere in Gloucestershire, Clearwell Castle, where it got to the reception after the speeches, and I realised that I hadn't actually touched my Canons. You know, as the light got low and first dance and all that kind of stuff. But up until then, I hadn't actually touched any, and I thought, you know what, maybe this is it, you know. And then it just kind of gradually decreased. The Canon would stay in the car, Canon would stay in the car. So I suppose probably 18 months ago was when 18 months to 2 years ago was when I was shooting like 95–99% with the Fujis. And then when the X100S and the XT1s came along, you know, that was it. No reason for the Canons any longer.
Switched over.
And low light, so all gone.
Now, printing quality and print size from the Fuji 1.5 crop. Obviously, I think you've already answered this question. You obviously have the work printed for your customer or customers. Sorry. This printing issue is not a problem, really, is it? Because a lot of people talk about, well, that's got a particular file size, so that's going to only allow you to print to 7x5 or 10x8. Is that normally the print sizes you're looking for, or have you gone larger print size? Have you gone to A3 prints, for argument's sake?
Oh man, I have done. If you look at my presentation in Tokyo, CP Plus in Yokohama this year in February. If you look on my blog post about that, you'll see a print of mine that Fuji did from a JPEG from an X Pro 1. They had it at 12 feet by 8 feet, something like that. Photokina last week, they had 2 prints, one by Bert Stefani and one by Zach Arias, that were, I don't know, kind of 10 feet, maybe a little bit bigger. They had the whole X Photographer's Gallery, 50 images. All of them were at least, A1, A0. There is absolutely no excuse for that. I mean, yeah, you're not going to go billboard size, perhaps, without having to use some kind of software.
Yeah.
But the print quality is great, image size is great. You know, super.
There's going to be, from a point of view of a professional, there's going to be no requirement for them to say, well, you can't use a Fuji 1.5 crop to put something in a magazine, for argument's sake, or for a printed version in a magazine or newspaper.
No.
The quality is there in the images being created from a JPEG as well. You mentioned
that's from a JPEG.
From the raw file.
I mean, every month I have images in my article in magazine, and they're all Fuji's. There's never any issues with that. You know, it's just not something that comes into my equation.
Yeah. That's an interesting point, actually, because I think when you get involved in some conversations on Facebook and other social sites, this is one of the things that crops up. Excuse the pun. In terms of well, it's a 1.5 crop, so I can only print to 10x8. I want to go to A3. Personally, I've had no problem printing to A3 from my XE1, but I sometimes wonder what the professional requirement and the professional knowledge they require, and it's great to hear that images of those size have been printed and quite happy to be shown and used. Let's be honest, on a predominant stand at a top show. So that's a real good background as regards to why you switched over. And now, as you've just said, your X100S, although you've got the new X100T, which is a nice little segue into this new little baby that's joined the Fuji stable. Would you like to tell us about the Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, it's only a pre-production, but I'm guessing it's pretty much as close as it's going to get to the finished thing. I think it's going to ship in November or something like that. So, yeah, it's very good. It's very, very similar to the 100S. It's visually and kind of aesthetically, it's very similar. There's some subtle changes. On the exterior, most notably, the changes are the button locations, and they're hopefully standardizing this, so all of the cameras will have a standardized optical viewfinder. Yeah, well, just the hybrid viewfinder completely is amazing. If you're into the rangefinder style of shooting, in the optical viewfinder, it's got the little focal assist box that pops up, compensation. It's 7 customizable buttons. There's a notable difference, but physically, it's all of the accessories and all that good stuff should work with this. So all of Matt's, you were talking to Matt last week, so all of his add-ons and things should just work seamlessly, I would have thought. It's cool. It's very nice, very nice. Much more video control, manual exposure within videos, 24, 25, 50, 60 frames per second, and of course the classic Chrome film simulation, which is I love it. Yeah.
That's what I was going to ask you about, actually, because it's something which has caught my attention from what I've said. This classic Chrome filter. I think the filters that I've got on my XE1 is amazing to have, but this classic Chrome seems to be catching a lot of attention.
Yeah, no, I really love it, and it's kind of it really fits my style. The color work that I do, which isn't much. But when I do color, that's the kind of image editing that I would have been trying to achieve. And it's just great. It's really, really nice, deep dark blues and very subtle vintagey style. And it's very sympathetic with the old Chrome styles. It's great. I love it.
That sounds great. That sounds really right up my street, as some would say. Right up my. I tell you what, Kevin. Shall we do a screen share? You're going to show us this presentation and on you when you've got your presentation set up.
Okay.
And if you want to do a little documentary talk us through the images. As soon as we get the thing, I'll lock it on your. There we go. We're locked on your screen now. I hope all the viewers. I've got to say, as we're talking, this is the most viewers I've ever had on a show. So thank you so much, Kevin, for that. So.
Okay. Cool.
Far away.
You can see my screen and not me now, right?
Yes, I can see your screen. I'm locked you on. There we go.
Okay, cool. Okay, so that's my setup now, pretty much for weddings. So what you've got there is the X100S, 2 X-T1s, the spare lenses that I would take, and the batteries. It's very lightweight. The reason why I changed really was for the size and the ability that it will give me to getting much closer to clients. And as I said earlier, that's the most important thing for me, was being able to document the wedding from the inside in rather than from the outside in. From the inside out rather than from the outside in. So this is all cool. And I always talk about a wedding that I did in France earlier this year, where I took all this gear, I took my kind of spare clothes and my toothpaste and everything else, and it all went in a little hand bag onto the plane with me 2 days later. You know, it's just so easy to do stuff these days.
Yeah. Can I just ask to interrupt you there quickly? What are the 2 spare lenses in the middle there?
Those 2. So on the XT ones in that picture, the 23mm and the 56mm.
Right.
The 2 in front of us, the little one on the right is a 27mm pancake lens.
Lovely lens.
And the one on the left, I think, is 35mm.
Yeah, that's a lovely
1.4.
well. Yeah, I've got those too. You didn't buy the 1855?
But pretty much, yeah, I've got that, but I don't use zooms really. Right. So you know, I've never used that at wedding. Okay. Although it's, you know, it's a good lens. But I pretty much, if you took those spare lenses away, I never use those spare lenses. I use 35mm and 85mm equivalent full frame, so 23mm, 56mm. Yeah. On that X100, you can't really see it, but there is a wide angle converter on it. Yeah. So that brings it down to 28mm. So that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So this is the slide. Yeah.
That's cool. So this is the kind of pictures that, you know, I always use this picture as an example, because I just don't think that I would ever have got this with my previous Canon system. And you know, you get the picture, of course, the image. Yeah. Like I said, I'll never knock my Canons, but physically, I would never have been able to get this close without bopping that bloke on the nose with the lens. Yeah. And you know, that would have just ruined the moment. You know, and this is a really important moment, father of the bride. And you know, this is what kind of does it for me. These kind of tender moments.
Beautiful image.
Yeah. Technically, the judges would knock it from left to right, but you know, I don't really care. It's all about the contact and emotion for me. And so pictures like this. This is from a few weeks back. The reason why I kind of show this one is because one of the questions I get asked a lot about the Fuji stuff is about the reactiveness of them, and you know, quick autofocus, etc., etc. Yeah. So you know, in this picture, I'm photographing the bridal prep, which you can just see the makeup artist on the right-hand side. Yeah. And this lady is with the baby, and you know, literally just turned away again. And you know, what I love about candid photography is the whole thing about eye contact, and when it comes to young kids and babies, having eye contact with the camera, I think, really makes a good picture. Yeah. That's right. Not adults, but babies, and with adults, it's when the eye contact with each other that makes a picture. Yeah. But this, you know, this little baby's looking into this camera, thinking, well, you know, what the hell's that fat hairy bloke on the floor doing in there? But it's you know, it's a lovely moment.
Lovely catch.
And the mother loves that.
Eyes there.
Yeah. I'm under a windowsill, so that kind of makes all that come together.
Lovely.
So this one is grainy as you like, but it's grainy as I like it. And this was actually shot at JPEG 12,800 ISO, and I've added grain as well because it's part of my post-processing. Again, so this is X100S a few months back, very dark. I wanted to get this picture because these 2 little girls who are twins have been kind of interacting all day, but never really doing anything that told a story of them being twins. So I packed up at this point. I was literally leaving. I had my bag over my shoulder. I was going. But one thing I always do is when I leave a wedding, especially when I'm in London, is I put the card safe, and then I'll swap a personal card into my camera, and I'll always have that ready on my hip. And so I'm literally walking past them, lifted the camera. They were doing exactly what I'd hoped they'd be doing all day. Took the picture, and off I went. You know, so it's a grab shot, but it's a lovely picture. I really love that picture.
Yeah, it's lovely. I love the movement in the dress there as well. It's
that's beautiful. And what does it for me is, because you know, I was really waiting for them to try and tell the story of the fact that they were twins. Yeah. You know, so there's like the symmetry there. They're both doing the same thing. They both got the same clothes on. You know, that's really what kind of makes it for me.
Yeah.
So this one here again is another image that you know, I probably wouldn't have got with my DSLRs, and the reason for that is because this particular guy, great guy, great character at a wedding, you know, he kind of eyeballed me, and you know, I could see he was looking at me as you know, this kind of the guy with the camera. So, but I also saw him heading for the beer, and I really wanted to get a picture of this. because it kind of typifies England for me. This to a
Yeah,
certain
it
extent.
does.
And so I shot this from under my arm. I've walked up to the guy, the waiter there, and I stood with my left shoulder to his right shoulder, and I've essentially shot this under my arm. I've popped the tilt screen out on the XT1. I've shot this under my arm, and there's absolutely no way that he would have known I was taking this picture. And I wouldn't be able to physically do that with a DSLR, and let alone do it discreetly like that. And so then the second picture, which kind of brings that together again, same thing, straight out, pop, love it, love all that.
Looks as though he's been waiting for that beer all day by the looks of things.
Yeah, I was very jealous, I must admit. But it's funny, on that point, I often pick up a glass of champagne or whatever. I don't really drink it. Well, I never drink it, but I'll often walk around with it in one hand and the camera in the other, because I can just lift the camera to my eye with one hand.
Yeah.
And it just helps with that kind of charade of being a guest, and you just kind of wander around, and you're just in there with them, and it's a brilliant way of working.
Whilst you're on that subject, Kevin, what would be your normal settings then for this walking around, dare I use the term, candid shooting? Are you setting ISO at automatic? Are you what's your setup with the camera?
My philosophy with cameras is that I pay a lot of money for these cameras. I want them to do as much of the work as absolutely possible. Okay. So auto ISO, aperture priority. I'm just responsible for looking for the image. That's really how I want to work. When the going gets tough with the lighting and stuff, then I'll shoot manually, manual focus also, and then I'll do it that way. But yeah, auto ISO. I never shoot in automatic mode. No. Which is when you have when it does everything for you in that respect. I like to control the aperture because I like the depth of field that some of the lenses give me, and mostly it's because I'm working in natural light, so I need to be able to shoot as wide open as possible. So auto ISO, and the auto ISO, I used to shoot auto ISO on my Canons as well. It was great at that. Yeah. Aperture priority, brilliant.
So generally, what aperture? This looks like a 2.8 sort of setting here. F2 on
this probably would have. On this particular image, I'd need to look at the EXIF, but I'm fairly sure this is on 23mm lens, and I would have had an ND filter on it, so it would have been a 1.4. Okay. And the reason I would have had an ND filter on it is because in their infinite wisdom, Fuji made the XT1s with 1/4000th of a shutter speed, and then released f1.2 and f1.4 lenses, which is kind of a little bit of a kind of blow, but they realised that, and so up until now I've had to use ND filters when I'm outside. Okay. But the XT1 and now the X100T will, they've introduced these much higher shutter speeds, so the XT1 will get that in firmware updates as well.
Oh, that's
that will go away. And actually, you know what? Sometimes I leave ND filters on because I like grain. I like to shoot at higher ISOs and get natural grain into the image. So I'll often leave those on there anyway.
Yeah.
Sometimes because I forget to take them off. So this is again this image is here really to show that the metering of the cameras is pretty spot on. This is down in the Great Barn in Devon, which is a beautiful venue, absolutely wonderful. And this was shot on X Pro 1, probably on 35mm lens in those days. And it's crystal clear. It's maybe 3200 ISO, and it's spot metered, so the metering is great. A lot of people for some reason don't really experiment with spot metering modes, and I shoot a lot using spot metering, especially in fiddly light like this, and you can get some very artistic results without doing anything apart from just putting it into spot metering mode, and it works really well. So I'm always shooting in spot metering mode, or quite often changing into it. And it really plucks out the highlights in that image, and I love it.
Beautiful, crystal clear on the glasses. Lovely image.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, I love the expression on that guy's
this is
face.
my, yeah.
He's not
I
too
love this
sure
picture
about
as well,
something.
and yeah.
Great capture.
I,
Great
I
capture.
kind of when I was eyeing up this picture, I was hoping that because he's basically looking at the bride and groom, which are over my right
Yeah.
hand shoulder. I'm really trying to get them in the reflection, but it just didn't come off. Um, and but you know this was shot on the 100T and this is 6400 ISO. It's quite a harsh light there, although it doesn't look like it. This is in Hampton Court Gardens, Hampton Court House, or whatever it's called,
Yeah.
and you know it's wood panelled. It's very excuse me, late in the afternoon, and it's you know there's nice lights everywhere. I love it. Plucked out the details of everybody.
Yeah.
The guy there is doing his you know best old man impression. You know, I really like that picture.
Yeah, it's a case of you get the
And
impression
this basically,
he's wondering whether this marriage is going to work. No, I'll give it 6 months. That's the title for that image for me.
yeah, you know,
Yeah.
they're a lovely couple. So I'm sure it will.
6 months. Yeah,
You
nice.
just, the thing is, you can look. I can look at pictures like this and want, you know, just sit there staring at it for hours on end, wondering,
Yeah,
you know, what the two women are chatting about, what he's thinking. The guy on the left, he's looking disinterested,
that's right.
you know, and there's all sorts of stuff going on in the mirror.
And then you got the mirror as well.
You know,
Exactly right. Yeah, yeah.
this I don't know, you know, I don't know these people at all, but it's
No,
something I'd have on my wall because I could just look at it.
and they didn't even know you're taking the image as well. That's the other thing, isn't it?
Yeah, no, totally. Yeah, no, I mean, this is shot on the X100, so I would have brought it up to
Oh,
my eye, but it would have been very, very quick. Silent, oof, you know, absolutely done. Yeah, they have no idea that picture was ever taken.
yeah, lovely. On to the
Um,
next one. On to the next one.
yeah, this one is basically I've turned around, so this is I've
Right.
practically
Okay.
turned around and taken the same type of image. So I've kind of included it to show that you know the way it deals with the shadows and the highlights, and you know the light's
Yeah.
coming from a different direction here, obviously from the window on the left rather than the one on the right that was predominant in the other image. You know, again, nobody knows that image is being taken. I've taken one, I've turned around, taken another, and you know, I'll then just wander off. They'll never even know. It's such a great way of working. It's really, you know, it's really cathartic, and I often say, I seem to be saying it a lot these days, but I'm not actually a fan of weddings as such. I don't particularly like weddings, but I love photographing people at weddings. It's like street photography at a wedding. That's
Yeah.
really how I kind of bring it down. And
Yeah.
so the whole kind of you know the procedure of a wedding doesn't interest me whatsoever. I'm not fussed on things like cake cutting and formal shots and you know all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. I'm interested in taking pictures of people taking pictures of the cake cutting, and I'm interested in you know how they interact with each other and how they change throughout the day, and you know how alcohol affects them and how they deal with people who aren't you know who they don't particularly like and or they do like.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that floats my boat.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so let's go on to the next one. So another favourite image of mine, and for this one, I've seen Bride. She's gone running up the church path to greet her grandmother or auntie or whoever this is. And all I've known is that she's torn off, and there's an older lady at the end of the path. So I know there's something's going to happen. So I've kind of rushed up behind them, and I've got this picture. And again, you know, I'm sorry to say it, but with my Canons, yeah, I probably would have done it, but I would have done myself a mischief with them banging against me and tripping over them and my big bag and all that kind of stuff. So again, this is a picture that I just don't think I would have got with the Canons. And I love it. You know, I love this picture.
Yeah. It's a lovely
It's
expression.
all about the hands,
Yeah. Exactly.
the emotion, the grip. You don't need to know anything else apart
No, you
from
don't.
you know to us we don't need to know anything apart from there's love in that picture. You know, there's
Yeah. Exactly.
happiness.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about that, Kevin, if I can just add here, this is the way I'm looking at the image myself. Obviously, you go straight to the, we'll say the older lady's, I don't know, it could be mother, aunt or something, but on the right-hand side of that image, you've got the fella looking, and it appears to me that he's smiling or he's laughing, and I'm assuming he's making a reaction to that hug and that cuddle, which is a great capture on that point.
Yeah, possibly, or he might be laughing at me.
He may have been laughing at you. He may
Running
have
up the
been laughing
path.
at a joke, but that's the relation of that I get from that. So
Yeah,
I'm going to
no,
leave it at
absolutely.
that. I
Like,
think.
the whole thing about the whole thing about the way that I work is in, I firmly believe that I'm not deluded enough to realize that it's kind of 90% luck in terms of what's happening on
Mm,
the day, and my job is to make sure I capture it really. What happens is I don't direct it or interfere with it in any way, shape, or form. I'll never ask somebody to move or move to the light or hang dress up or
no,
look at me, smile cheese or none of that. It just
no.
doesn't. It does not happen.
Yeah. If you start doing that, you're going
So
to lose
people
the
have to
moment,
make
aren't you?
their own. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And so people have to make the stories. They're kind of like the canvas, and I'm just a bloke just snapping away and taking the pictures. But
Mm,
you're very much aware of what's going on around you. But it's definitely this kind of stuff is what works for me
yeah.
rather than the grip and grin.
Yes. Nicely put. Moving on to the next one then. Grip and grin.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that.
grip and grin. So another one here is, technically it's grainy, 6400. This is a typical British or, British weather, British wedding, middle of summer, piddling it down with rain outside, barn type venue. I really had problems even kind of seeing where the bride was, let alone photographing her, because there's probably 60 people in a space that's suitable for 20.
Hmm.
And there's umbrellas and everybody's steaming with moisture and everything. So I've kind of squeezed my way through the crowd and crept up, and this is kind of the picture from that particular wedding that I love the most.
Yeah.
Um, it's just all about that contact. You've got the hand, you've got the kiss, you've got people smiling and laughing in all directions. I love the grain. I love
I was just going to say the film,
timelessness of
the
it.
grain on this is just so film-like.
Mm,
It's amazing in my book. I just love it. The grain down, especially down the left-hand side, uh, is
yeah,
just suits the image down to a
yeah.
T.
No, I love it too.
Yeah.
I love it, and it's one of my challenges at most weddings these days is to get as many images as I can without any modern
Mhm.
things in them. So phones, iPads, cars,
Yeah.
telegraph poles, all that kind of stuff. And this kind of ticks that box for me in terms of that.
Yeah. It's a timeless image of a
So
wedding, isn't it? Timeless.
yeah.
Oh,
So
I love
another
it.
image, and what I say about this one is this picture is really special, I think, because that's the father of the groom and the father of the groom's mother. Now, had I stood there with a 70 to 200 big white long lens, yeah, perhaps the image would have still been made, but the chances are I would have had some kind of interference. And whenever I look at this picture, and the thought of this moment in time never happening because of me or because of what I was doing, fills me with dread and fills me with deep sense of sadness. Because in 20, 30 years time, this is going to be a very precious picture.
You think
Again,
indeed.
technically rubbish. The uprights aren't there, and it would never win any awards. But it's a moment in time that is really, really, really precious, I think. And I'd hate to think that it was never there because if I was outside doing loads of group shots or something and missed this, that
Yes.
would annoy me.
Yeah.
And if this moment never happened because I was stood there with a great big lens, then that would really upset me.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful capture. Love the expression on the lady and
Um,
obviously the man as well. Yeah. That's another nice capture as well.
yeah, similar thing. It's right in with the crowd. This is the whole
Yeah.
point about being in there and shooting the images to take them right back in time to those moments. This is what I do, and this is what I want to do, I should say, and this is
Mm.
what I hope to achieve at every wedding. Just delivering people right back, bang, to that particular moment in time, but important moments where there's for me it's all about eye contact, humor, emotion, touch, love, everything like that, all that goodness. I'm not really fussed on the technicalities of pictures, to be honest with you. Which is, I shouldn't really say that.
All the pictures you're putting together here for, if it was collectively for to record a wedding, the couple couldn't have been more happy with this presentation of work, because, as you say, you are capturing the day, you're capturing the moment, how much people are enjoying themselves. They're happy, obviously, for the couple. And as you say, if you'd had a bigger camera and a bigger lens, I would say 50, probably 60% of these images you would not have got.
Completely, yeah, absolutely agree. Even with the 35mm lens on my old 5D Mark III,
yeah,
it was a beautiful combination. But for example, this picture in front of us now, I've been shooting for, this was that French wedding I was talking about, and I've been shooting for maybe 12 hours straight, and I would have been dead on my feet with those Canons. And I went on for another couple of hours at this wedding. This was, I love this picture. Again, it's blown, it's grainy, but I'm shooting the speeches which are going on the right-hand side, and the toast has gone. I've used my ear, so I've kind of honed in on the table that's the most raucous. So I'm ready for something to happen. And when it happened, I just bend down, snap the picture, but I put myself in the place of where another guest essentially would be. So they're seeing this from the guest's point of view, rather than from from the photographer's point of view in the corner of the room.
Very true. Lovely.
So this old lady and her teeth makes me laugh. I laugh every time I see this picture. So this picture was taken from the hip using the XT1 with a flip-out screen. Walked up to her, took the picture, walked away. And I love it. I just love it. There's so much character in that woman's face.
Character, expression, it's all there, isn't it?
Yeah, it's wonderful. I love it. Absolutely love it to bits. And they're her teeth as well, which I think is quite frankly amazing. And I just think it's one of those pictures that, again, I could just look at it forever and wonder what her life is like. I'm fairly sure she wasn't, but she's saying, she looks to me like some kind of American New Yorker, kind of somebody who smokes 90 a day and drinks whiskey. But
I would say, Kevin, to put it politely, I think she's seen life.
Yeah, but isn't that great? Isn't that great? I love people like that. I love seeing the expressions on these people's faces.
Exactly right. Right.
It's much better to see a picture like this of her with with her age and her face.
If you'd stopped them and said, "Excuse me, would you mind if I took a photograph of you and you got them to pose for it?" You wouldn't have got 10% of the expression you've got there. No, exactly. You've just got a boring portrait shot.
Yeah, totally. And nor if she was lined up in a group outside with 35 other members of the family.
Yeah.
You just wouldn't see it. And of course, I'm not saying that I'm not saying you can't do this as well as do the group shots. So, a load of my friends do the group shots and they do it very, very well and brilliantly. And I envy their talent. But for me, I just kind of this is the thing that I just concentrate on. Float to my boat.
Exactly.
So next, we're on to another one here, which is X100T silent. The light is breaking across an early evening. It's just a nice moment. So this one now, you should be seeing a color picture now.
Yep.
With the Jenga. So 132,000th f2 X100T classic chrome. So I use framing, and I try and frame everything really with people or whatever else is going on. But the reason I've included this is because a week before, before I had that camera, I would have to be shooting this at maybe f11 to get this shot. If I wanted to shoot it in bright daylight. So now I can get that little bit of depth of field that the X100 will give you, as well as shooting this light. And same thing. It's the classic chrome right in there. Beautiful pictures there with the color. So this is my mate Sanjay, who's a wonderful photographer in his own right, amazing in fact. In a bar, You know, I had my little XM1 with me. Picture that I just wouldn't have had this picture taken. I would never take this picture. This is obviously a staged picture, but I would never have taken this picture. We were just messing about, and would never have taken this picture. I would never have had a DSLR with me in past years. My little boy, you know, so we're on top of a hill in the middle of Spain, X100. You know, picture this is on my kitchen wall. I don't know, like 3 feet wide or something, and it'll be something that I'll always look at and always be proud of that, the little boy, and proud of the picture. Would never have taken it. Would never have taken a DSLR with me on that trip up the hill in Spain.
Yeah, looks like his dad.
Classic. Go ahead.
I said it looks like his dad. Just cutting out a little bit.
He's a little character.
Yeah, he looks it. Yeah. He looks a character too.
So this is classic chrome JPEG out of the camera, so you can see here the loveliness of it. It's a real dilemma for me as a black and white photographer, really. Another one, classic chrome. You know, it's just you know, these I just took these from the side of a boat a couple of weeks back, but you can see that detail in the sky and the color and the cows and the sharpness and everything. And these are just JPEGs right out of that camera. Street shooting, again, classic chrome from the hip. This is just straight from the hip. Kids walking towards me, zone focused. I don't know, maybe whatever, F8, something like that. Snap, bang. Just looking directly at the camera at my waist level. So I'm gonna I'm conscious of the time, so this is a series of pictures, so I'm going to actually just whip through them very quickly, but it will hopefully demonstrate the whole point of shooting the wedding from the inside out. So this is how I kind of like to shoot the first dance. So
yeah,
you know, kind of moving around them, keeping an eye for eye contact, getting really close, moving down low, moving around, keeping the characters in the background important features of the image. Using the leading lines of the arms there, moving it back around, back down again, getting everything going. So using them as a leading into the lady, bang, 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 bang. There's the last image is the one with the you might be lagging, but the last image is when he's got his finger in the air.
Finger in the air, yeah. Good set of images there on the last set there. It just shows you the advantage of having such a neat set of camera equipment. I'm going to come out of lock, Kevin. If you want to click off your, go to the screen share and come out of that, get your face back. Lovely. Thank you so much for showing that presentation. That was lovely, because I think really what it's done to the viewers, rather shown to the viewers, how you can work. In the style of the photo, in the style that you want to work, the easiness of you being able to walk around candidly, taking photographs, catching the expression, catching really the moment of the wedding, rather than what we have been sort of used to in the past, the group shots, the stage shots, and as you said quite eloquently, grip and grin, which I think is a great expression. I love that. Come here. After your images, let's just talk briefly about your editing process. This, I'm assuming, is something you do yourself, and do you use Lightroom or
yeah,
process?
Most of my work is shot JPEG in the camera.
Right. Oh, okay.
All of it, but most of it. And so for the black and white stuff, if people are watching and they do have Fujis, I use the black and white plus R filter, and I set the sharpness to +2, shadows and highlights to -1, and noise reduction to -2. And then I use Lightroom, and my black and whites generally get a little bit more grain added and a little kind of sepia tone added to them. That's pretty much it. You know, the whole point of and I did it with my Canons also, is the whole point of the JPEGs is it makes the workflow so much easier, so much easier.
That's interesting what you mentioned. Sorry, Kevin. That's interesting what you mentioned with regards to your setup of camera, where you've actually made the adjustments in the sharpness, the noise, and the other items that you can do, obviously, for a custom preset on the cameras. Is that the same on every camera that you've got? Do you use the same preset?
Yeah.
That's really interesting. That's something which I've been toying with, and I'm still sort of experimenting myself, because obviously up to now, from my aspect, purely amateur-wise, a lot of that work I do in Lightroom myself, which obviously you can do, but as you say, it to a degree shortens the process of editing.
Yeah.
With the way it's done by the camera.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, if I'm taking a picture that's going to be printed really large, or it's it's a commercial shoot or something like that, then I would shoot raw. You know, you need that latitude.
Yeah.
And generally I'll shoot the ceremony in JPEG plus RAW, just in case anything has gone wrong there. And certainly when the light gets very difficult, then I'll shoot RAW, just so I can deal with white balance easier later. But by and large, kind of 60–70% of the day I'll shoot JPEG. The cameras are quicker, the processing is quicker, and I get to the pub quicker.
Yeah, that exactly that was the point I was going to say. I was going to ask you the question. You've answered it for me. Using JPEG, obviously the processing of the shot is quicker in the camera, and obviously you can effectively, one shot's done, you can move on to the next one very quickly. You don't have to wait for the raw file to be processed in the camera. That's a good little tip, actually. Something which a lot of sports photographers do, don't they? They use the JPEG rather than the raw file because of the speed of the shutter speed and frames per second, so to speak. So, interesting enough, we talked about this before the show. There was one particular aspect on your website where you were invited to take photographs of a friend of yours having a baby. I was going to ask you, is that the strangest commissioned work that you've been given? Or is there another one that tops that one? Because I'm seeing this quite a bit now. Some friends of mine have said, "Oh, I've got to take photographs of my wife having the baby." But I'm interested to know, is this the strangest commission that you've been given or asked to do?
Yeah, pretty much, I think, because I've had some strange weddings, but everything else has been weddings. I loved it. What happened was, I decided to do something right out of my comfort zone. It doesn't get much further for me out of my comfort zone than that.
No.
And she asked me. It's not my wife. It's I know a friend, and I thought, yeah, this is great. I'm going to do it, and it was brilliant. Really, really kind of mind-opening experience in terms of documenting something as fragile as the birth of a human being, and kind of holding it together and doing it and being aware of everything in terms of the doctor's requests, as well as being reliant on getting the images, etc. And the doctor afterwards said that he just didn't even notice. I showed him the pictures on the back of the camera, and he was quite gobsmacked because he just didn't realise they'd been taken.
Fantastic.
And that kind of I love to do more of that. I love to do that kind of stuff, what I call social documentary. I don't know whether that's a real term or not. But,
I think you touched on it. I think you touched on it when you were talking through on your wedding photography. Your style is, I say this straight off the bat. It's a street photography style of a wedding photography. Of a wedding event, where your candid style is coming through, and this was obviously something which you approached with this birth.
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah, I mean, if people go to the website, they can see the whole slideshow, and it's totally candid. It's a difficult thing because obviously at the start I'm in the room with the mum and the dad and midwives, etc., etc. But yeah, it's totally candid, and real moments happen wherever you are, and if you're there for a reason and you're there, you can monitor it and observe it. Then you're just an observer of this stuff that's going on in front of you. It's just like street photography. Somebody said on Facebook, I can't remember the guy's name there, but very well respected street photographer, and he said that he thinks that street photography is looking for the extraordinary in the ordinary, and I think that's a great term, great terminology, because there's extraordinary stuff in everything that's ordinary as well, and that could just be the shift of eyes, the touch of a hand, anything like that makes an ordinary picture or an ordinary moment something special.
Yeah, that's a very good point you make there. Actually, makes me think. Obviously, because street photography being my favourite genre with regards to making images at the moment. Um, let's talk about the photographer who you find the most inspiring. Your most favourite photographer. Is there one that you could honestly put the pin on and say that's the guy that kicked it off for me? That's the guy that I always look to for inspiration.
I think, you know what, I can't just give one name here because, excuse me, there's a lot of stuff going on. But if I had to pick somebody who was kind of the catalyst for everything in terms of the way that I work, it would be Jeff Daskoff, because his work is just fantastic, and it's definitely something that I've always kind of aspired to be, to be like, and I've just loved his moody black and whites and his the kind of emotion he gets in it. I've always tried to make my work very different in terms of, I think that I probably get a little bit closer, and my work is probably, well, it definitely is far less technically correct. But in terms of the catalyst, then yeah, it would be him. But right now, I think for the good of the industry, there's a guy called Neil James who is, the stuff he's putting out there right now as a wedding photojournalist and just an all-round ambassador of good stuff is amazing. He's doing the whole photo film stuff. He's he's doing voiceovers. His photography is amazing. His work ethic is fantastic, and he's an all-round really nice guy. He's got a lovely wife, great kids. He's the kind of bloke you just want to punch on the nose, but there's no reason to do it.
Just because he's too kind, too nice.
Yeah. So he's really cool, and what I like about him the most is that he's got this real kind of passion for his work, but also for the industry, and we all know that I could throw a ball out the window and hit a wedding photographer right now, but you have to. If we all kind of pull together as an industry, then the industry will only go in one direction, and that's up. But unfortunately, there's too many people who are pulling it towards themselves only and not thinking about the industry. That's life, and that will happen. But Neil's certainly somebody who, is just out there.
Yeah, unfortunately, what you've just said there applies to so many other different industries. It's not just photography, is it? But that is life. That is life. So let's ask Kevin Mullins, what's the future? What's your future plans? Have you got anything that you'd like to move into, or are you just very happy in the lane that you've chosen and you're going to continue on? Obviously, wedding photography and the style you're doing, you'll continue doing that. But is there anything else on the horizons that you fancy having a crack at?
Yeah, I like the whole idea of these the social documentary stuff. I've got some stuff in the planning at the moment where I'm going to be going to some kind of major sporting events, but I'm going to be not paid as such, but I'm going to be doing brochures or books, if you like, for images of the crowd. So I'm from within the crowd. So I'm looking for atmospheric images from within the crowd.
Yeah.
So this is a personal work book. I'm going to be going to kind of major rugby events and things like that. So the whole point is that I'm going to be doing that thing from like being a guest at a wedding, but being a spectator at the rugby or the football or whatever it is. I'd like to do a boxing as well. So I want to get the real passion from the people rather than shooting the actual event itself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to do more of that. But yeah, weddings is where it's at, and it's cool and I love it, and kind of the 30 weddings a year is good for me. I don't think I could do more than that really, but no. It's a happy medium, and it's great.
That's lovely. How many images a wedding do you on average take?
I will probably, for like an average 8-hour wedding, they will probably get around about 350 pictures.
Right. Okay.
And I probably press the button probably 3 or 4 times more than that.
Yeah.
So probably 3 times for every image they get. I probably click the button 3 times.
Yeah, and that in itself is a lot of work for you to do, because obviously once you get home, you've got to process, you've got to edit, you've got to check out which are the good ones. So 30 weddings a year doing and then the editing of potentially 900 images is a hell of a lot of work. And no, I can understand why you say I don't think you could do any more than 30. I think if it's the age-old thing, isn't it? If you start doing more, something's got to give. The quality would drop off.
Yeah, maybe, and I know people who do a lot more than that, but
yeah,
for me, I came into the industry, I came into this world for a better way of life, not to make millions of pounds. So if it ever gets to the point where I'm kind of missing out on family and life and general well-being, then something's wrong. So that's always at the forefront of my thinking.
Yeah, something we haven't talked about. We'll keep it brief because we're getting close to the end of the show. You obviously do workshops as well. This is an important part of your business, for want of description. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I do a few kind of wedding photojournalism workshops and stuff. Mm-hmm. I've been doing a lot of street photography workshops with the X series. So they've been going really well, and it's not really something that's there to make thousands of pounds. It's there really to get me out and about, to meet people, to hopefully bring like-minded people together and shoot together, and enjoy it and have a beer at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's certainly something I'm doing kind of more of. Sure. It's getting me around and about. Yeah.
That's lovely. Well, what I'd like you to do, Kevin, if you could, I know there's the website, but if there are any particular links that you want to send on to me for workshops or anything else of that nature, if you'd like to do that, then I'll put that in the blog, which I put out after the show, which is usually published up on the Monday, and then got all the links, obviously, to your website and all the other bits and bobs. And if you could also be so kind to give me the links for those two photographers you mentioned. I'd like to add that into the blog as well. Kevin, I've just got to say, fantastic. I've really thoroughly enjoyed talking to you and hearing all about the Fujis, the new stuff coming on board with the Fujis as well when they're released. Your background, how you go about your photography, fantastic presentation. Can't thank you enough for joining me. And
thanks very much for inviting me.
That's my pleasure. That's my pleasure. And well, viewers, and I know you're out there because I can see the numbers being chucking around. It's been a fantastic event for me. I've never had so many viewers, so thank you so much for joining me live on this particular event. And if you missed anything part of it and you got dropped off or something on the internet link, you can catch the show back on YouTube, which should be available in about the next 2 or 3 hours once they've uploaded it. I'm losing my voice. Suffice to say, it's the end of the show, folks, and yeah, you guessed it. Leave your camera bag at home. Good night, everyone.